With a successful property like SpongeBob SquarePants comes content you might have never even seen before. Scenes, bits, and other deleted stuff which hit the cutting room floor before our fiending eyes came to feast on it. Moments from the show, and from some fan-favorite episodes, mind you, which are now lost in the sands of time. And what better way to cover some of these iconic and infamous deleted scenes than with an iceberg, with the most well-known stuff on top and more obscure stuff on the bottom. Now, back in the medieval times of 2021, I made this little iceberg with plans to create my first ever video off of it. However, with how new and inexperienced I was to the scene, undertaking this big project became quite a chore. You all know the train wreck that was depending on how long you've been here. Let's hope it actually works out this time. So let's dive into the chilly waters? No wait, that's too cliche of an opening to an iceberg video. Are you ready, kids? No wait, that's too cliche of an opening to a SpongeBob video. Okay, let's get right into the SpongeBob SquarePants deleted scenes iceberg. Just one bite. We start with one of the more well-known deleted sequences, as is normal with most icebergs. Season 3's Just One Bite is a classic episode where Squidward goes through the stages of grief and denial about his love for Krabby Patties. In fact, it is when he discovers this love is where we get probably the most infamous deleted scene from the show. After Squidward gets out of bed and runs to the Krusty Krab to quote, get his hands on a Krabby Patty, he notices a bucket of water dripping above the door which acts as the security system, quote unquote. Flattered at such a contraption, Squidward busts open the apparently unlocked door when he notices a smell. A smelly smell that smells smelly.
Gas!
After the initial explosion, another match drops, and Squidward anguishes in pain once again as the Krusty Krab goes up in even more flames. Of course, Squidward walks out of it just fine because this is a cartoon with no logic. This was the sequence that played from the episode's premiere in October 2001 all the way up until around January of next year, being replaced with a measly cut of Squiddy walking up to the Patty Vault for future airings, though the uncut version did remain on quite a few DVDs. At the time, no one was sure why the scene was cut, but people did start to speculate that it could have been to respect the victims of the September 11th attacks which happened less than a month before the episode premiered. No one knew the truth until current showrunner Vincent Waller spilled the beans on June 4th, 2018, telling a curious fan on Twitter that the real reason was Nick didn't want a scene that could encourage kids to play with gas and matches. Pretty anticlimactic, but okay. Procrastination. From one famous deleted sequence to another, here's Season 2's Procrastination, an episode about the thing we're going to do on this script for about a month. This scene lasted quite a bit longer in Nickelodeon airings, from the premiere in 2001 to around mid-2005. And we got a doozy here, because this one is essentially 3 deleted scenes combined into one delicious minute-long sequence, all taking place during SpongeBob's, procrastination. The first is when SpongeBob sees all his friends at the carnival outside his window, and a very suspicious moment with Patrick and Sandy. The second is someone dying.
Oh yeah.
The third is SpongeBob doing whatever the hell this is. All of this replaced with the laziest cut I've ever seen with my 2 little eyes. The interesting part about these scenes is that they are present on pretty much every home media and streaming version of Procrastination. Only in Nick airings post 2005 is this sequence not present, and no one knows exactly why, though we can make some interesting guesses. But luckily for all you people wearing the I really wish the deleted sequence from Procrastination was present on TV again button, you're in luck. On all Nicktoons airings after October 3rd, 2019, the uncut version is restored to its former glory. Still can't get that Patrick and Sandy scene out of my head though. I mean seriously, what even was the intent there? Deleted scenes in other countries. SpongeBob SquarePants is a pretty internationally recognized show, with versions airing in 24 languages in 170 countries. With all these worldwide adaptations, it's no wonder that there's going to be changes made to the show, either to fit different cultural and social standards, or to comply with foreign television codes. Some interesting deleted or changed content from around the world includes the infamous Persian dub censoring Sandy Cheek's cleavage, the UK version's cutting something from nearly every episode for some reason, and who could forget the famously beloved lost dub, Albanian SpongeBob. In all seriousness, there's plenty of internationally cut scenes from country to country, so many in fact that you can make an entire iceberg out of those alone. I was a teenage Gary. This is quite the juicy story, so go grab the Cheetos and Mountain Dew. I Was a Teenage Gary is a pretty infamous episode from the very first season, where part of this infamy comes from the episode's horrific plot, with Gary almost keeling over at Squidward's negligence, but also the fact that both SpongeBob and Squidward get transformed into snails. While SpongeBob's gruesome transformation remains in the episode, there were rumors for decades that Squidward's transformation was in the very first airing in October 1999 and cut afterwards. Purported evidence of this supposed sequence existing was the more rough wipe transition between Squidward getting injected with the snail plasma and the 3 snails on top of the dumpsters which magically appear behind their houses, instead of the bubble transitions that are commonplace. Rumors of a scene persisted throughout the 2000s and 2010s, with many pointing to a Polish dub retaining the scene, but this was later confirmed false. It wasn't until June 12th, 2016 when we got a true answer, as YouTuber 90s Give Me Goosebumps uploaded a video of the original airing, with no Squidward snail scene to be found, confirming it fake once and for all. Oh yeah, and for all you authority-challenging freaks out there who believe this is a cover-up created by Big Lost Media, Vincent Waller came in clutch once again to say that the scene wasn't in the storyboards. The Secret Box. This famous episode also kept viewers on edge for decades, as people speculated what really was that embarrassing picture of SpongeBob from the Christmas party inside Patrick's secret box. The truth is that there are actually quite a few contenders out there. Some point to this pic of a fresh pair of ripped pants, which was shown in a sequence of embarrassing Christmas party photos in a Nick Holiday short from 2002. While this photo is in close proximity to the episode's air date, it really doesn't have anything to do with it directly and is more just an interesting headcanon if anything. This image of SpongeBob and Gary has also circulated around for a while, though its origins are from a piece of fan art, so it's unofficial. In fact, there's actually quite a few that claim to be the pic, but turn out to be not real. Another seems to come from a classy piece of literature, Lights, Camera, Action, a funny fill-ins book. This one is also captioned with SpongeBob at some sort of party, though this one's biggest weakness is that there are Valentine's Day decorations in the background. I honestly fell down an above average sized rabbit hole looking up these pictures, and I came to the grand conclusion of, who knows? SpongeBob movies. While SpongeBob SquarePants the show has a boatload of deleted bits, the 3 movies have just as much, if not more, way too many to explain here in this entry. Here are some highlights. In the first movie, after SpongeBob and Patrick get out of the Shell City gift shop, there was originally going to be a scene where they get spit out into a vast city. They would have encountered a real-life, government experiment gone wild version of Sandy, and run past humanized versions of themselves. We'll explain this one in a bit more detail later, but this one seemed to be cut quite early on. In Sponge Out of Water, there was a scene where Burger Beard tells a story from his childhood to the seagulls, which was probably cut for time purposes. Oh yeah, and Slash makes a cameo appearance in one deleted scene. You can also find many of these on home media releases, creepy unfinished animation and all. But probably the most interesting example is the movie that went through development hell and back, Sponge on the Run. Not only were there loads of scenes cut, there were also entire story arcs that hit the cutting room floor. 3 plots were made for the movie across its development, of which I will also discuss in further detail later on. Help Wanted 1997 pilot changes. Before SpongeBob premiered in May of 1999, the very first episode we know today as Help Wanted was simply just known as the pilot, back when the show was greenlit in 1997. But before even that, the show was known as SpongeBoy Ahoy, and they had to change it definitely not because there was a mop product. I've got to course correct from that reef blower video you see. Speaking of which, there were plenty of production materials made for the pilot still branded as SpongeBoy Ahoy which have made their way online, which includes storyboards, cells, and most mysterious of all, the audio track. In a 2006 interview with Tom Kenny, it was confirmed that the audio where the spongiest sponge to ever sponge was called SpongeBoy was recorded before the name change, and it has never been heard outside Nick's walls. I actually came across this interview while doing research back in 2021 and didn't think much of it, so take that one LSSQ! As for the pilot itself, instead of the iconic opening sequence about pineapples and porous sponges, you get this cute little slideshow with upbeat music. SpongeBob SquarePants! Otherwise, it's essentially the same episode as Help Wanted until the very end, where we get another cute drawing of SpongeBob with created by Steven Hillenburg embroidered at the top and bottom. Truly a legend gone too soon. Animation cells. Before the show switched to purely digital animation in Season 2, SpongeBob's first season was the only one to use physical animation cells, with each and every frame being painted by hand. As you'll see in some entries later, these cells have become collector's items in recent years and have revealed some interesting deleted content from the show. Shanghai/You Wish. The famous Season 2 special where Patrick makes the funny noises we know today as Shanghai was originally promoted as You Wish during its premiere in 2001. The event would feature Patchy the Pirate, who would encourage you, yes, you, to call in or go to nick.com to literally vote for the ending of the episode to play out for the rest of the reruns.
Hey, no, not now! Don't call till I tell you to. Roll the cartoon!
So here you are, the viewer, wondering if SpongeBob, Patrick, or Squidward should get the last wish from the Flying Dutchman. SpongeBob's ending had wished Dutchie become a vegetarian so he was legally binded not to eat them. Patrick's ending wished for gum and had them getting eaten. Squidward's ending wished that he had never met his neighbors, and the trio also ended up getting eaten. Of course, since SpongeBob's ending was the only one that actually made some logical sense and didn't end in a quick gag, he won out in the end, and all future airings would drop the other two endings and cut out all of the voting material. While all three endings can be found on a few home media releases, the wraparound patchy segments for Patrick and Squidward's ending winning could not be found. It wasn't until September 2016 when Dark Lucario 3000 put up Patrick and Squidward's patchy segments in Spanish. While it gave us the footage and confirmed other endings aired in other dubs, it still left the English audio up in the air. However, early last year, Twitter 2023, truly we missed out on something spectacular. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 1 and 2. Voiced by the late Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy may be the closest thing Bikini Bottom has to a campy, 60s style superhero television show. We have both deleted scenes from their first appearance in the show, that being both single shots of a donut in SpongeBob's hand and a slice of cherry pie. We don't know why exactly these seemingly random shots were cut or where they were intended to fit into the episode. On the other hand, the deleted scenes from their second appearance may have gone far past the simple storyboard phase. We know about a large majority of the scenes cut from Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2, mainly being single shots and storyboard panels. There was initially a scene where SpongeBob, Mermaid Man, and Barnacle Boy tried to stop a bank robbery with a water ball, and a more notable scene where the statues of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy made by SpongeBob were eaten by the judges. According to storyboard artist Jay Lender, remember him? The latter scene was cut when Steven Hillenburg told him that the statues were a funny enough visual and not to put a gag on a gag. The famed realistic fish head in this sequence would have also been replaced by a traditional background incidental. What's even more interesting is that these bits may have been fully animated before getting cut, as various adjacent animation cells and timing sheets have resurfaced on eBay. But no finished version of a deleted scene from this episode has ever resurfaced, and that's just simple speculation on my part. Arrgh! A scene of a vision of Mr. Krabs sitting atop of and sniffing a pile of treasure right after when SpongeBob says, "Hey, Mr. Krabs is getting all sweaty again," was cut after getting storyboarded. Supervisor Sherm Cohen shared the boards of the cut scene on his DeviantArt in 2011. Karate Island. Pat Morita, the Japanese-American acting legend best known for his roles in The Karate Kid, MASH, and Happy Days, voiced Master Udon in the Season 4 episode Karate Island. It would, unfortunately, be his final television role. After recording his lines for the episode and before it aired in 2006, Morita just had to pull an epic prank bro and die from liver failure on November 24, 2005, at his home in Las Vegas, Nevada. When the episode aired in May 2006, a card dedicating the episode to Morita was displayed after the final scene. The episode aired again as part of the Best Day Ever marathon 6 months later with the dedication card intact, but after this, the card was removed from future airings and streaming releases of the episode in America. It can still be seen in international airings and various DVD releases. Graveyard Shift Floorboard Harry. Do you remember in the Graveyard Shift when the hash-slinging slasher was revealed to be this absolute Chad looking for a job at the Krusty Krab, and Squidward wondered who was flickering the lights and it was revealed to be this guy? According to the absolute legend Jay Lender, this was originally going to be a different character named Floorboard Harry. He was referenced in a scene earlier in the episode that ended up getting cut where SpongeBob is trying out different things he can do in the Krusty Krab at night, and he rips up a section of the floor and goes, "I'm delivering the mail to Floorboard Harry." A hand then appears under the ripped floorboard and grabs the mail. Nosferatu ended up being used in the final episode because it was funnier. I don't know though, if you were to ask me, I think it would be a toss-up between the floor literally coming to life and some obscure silent film character. The storyboard Harry can still be seen in the Nautical Nonsense and Sponge Buddies DVD, which features the episode. Pizza delivery. Another example of only single frames being cut from an episode. In this case, it's a shot of the Krusty Krab clock as well as the Erie's open and close sign. Again, we don't know why these shots were cut, but it's unlikely they would have affected the episode in any meaningful way. The snowball effect, Snow Dungeon. When Squidward was creating his snow fort to fend off SpongeBob and Patrick's snowballs, I think he went a little too far in making himself at home in the fort. Because a cut shot showed that there's no sugarcoating the snow-covered carnage that was supposed to take place. Heads of snowmen are scattered about with varied levels of torture and beheading shown to have taken place. As to hammer home the shot's real meaning, the storyboard panel shows Squidward clearly saying, "I'll bring them to my snow dungeon and extract their valuable secrets." Former supervising director Adam Pallone was the one who released this onto the world on Twitter, so you can thank him for exposing the war crimes that take place within the SpongeBob universe. Dying for pie. The open heart surgery gag in the finished episode, as strange as it was originally a bit more drawn out. Originally, Squidward asks SpongeBob, "Are you sure you should be poking it like that?" And he responds, "Who's the doctor here, me or you?" with blood spraying out of Squidward's heart until SpongeBob plugs it. The storyboard also shows that the two stopping by a fish working on a computer during the greeting sequence. The two leave before the fish gets a chance to look. Life of crime. I think this may be the closest SpongeBob has ever gotten to a gag reminiscent of a Family Guy cutaway. It's a scene where SpongeBob and Patrick imagine all the fun they could have had with a balloon, only to have it pop later without any intervention. The storyboards of the gag can be found today, and personally I think the episode benefited better from the gag being shelved due to the comedic timing. Jellyfish Hunter. When Mr. Krabs is pleading to SpongeBob to get more jellyfish from the field, there was meant to be more grotesque close-ups of him shown. A storyboard panel of these cut close-ups can be found today, and I think it's better that these were cut since it would have dragged the scene, and besides, why do we need more grotesque crab close-ups when we got this beauty already? Truly nothing is going to top that. Thank gosh it's Monday. Sponge Out of Water was the second and most divisive of the three SpongeBob films. Personally speaking, I think it's a decently fun movie that may have been spoiled by the fact that the trailer blatantly gave away the main gimmick of the movie. But with all the mayo bombs, talking dolphins, and teamwork that's present in the film, I guess they couldn't make room for one more song. Thank Gosh It's Monday was intended to be the intro sequence of the film, with SpongeBob getting out of bed and singing a sweet little tune about how his views and beliefs don't align with that of the famed orange cat Garfield. Unfortunately, it was cut very late into the editing stage, likely due to time constraints. Luckily, their work did not go to waste, as various versions were used as an advertisement for the film. The most notable of these was a version used for the Day of Positivity on January 5th, 2015 that was eventually uploaded to Paramount's UK YouTube channel. The full sequence was eventually made available on the Blu-ray release of the film and can be found online. Thank gosh, because I don't know what we would do otherwise. Breath of Fresh Squidward. This is a unique occasion when it comes to SpongeBob deleted scenes, where every so often an early animatic gets released and exposes the early secrets of some episodes. This is evident in Breath of Fresh Squidward when its animatic saw an official release on the Bikini Bottom Adventures DVD. It contained numerous cut scenes. SpongeBob refers to Squidward as our best friend Squidward after he and Patrick sneak into his house every morning. Mr. Krabs also has a cut line where he says, "Did someone say free in my restaurant?" And finally, my personal favorite, SpongeBob states, "What are you gonna do? Cry, Mr. Squidward Tentacles? Or should I say, Squid Jerk Losercles?" to him before he gets electrocuted. Call me the mysterious Mr. Enter, but I think we got a case of Squidward torture porn on our hands. What an animated atrocity. Pre-hibernation week. This is an episode where all its extreme sandboarding, extreme American Gladiator-esque ear cleaner fights, and extreme heavy metal madness by Pantera was planned from the first draft. Well, aside from two scenes that the commentary on the Season 2 DVD made light of, like Sandy originally making the girl power symbol with the leaves instead of Texas, and an alternate scene where SpongeBob sees Sandy begin her hibernation and he would have said, "Why I oughta," instead of laughing at her.
This is the episode where we had to do something with Sandy. I think it was our first Sandy one. I think originally in the board you drew it, she drew like a big female symbol, like for girl power. But it got changed to Texas because she's from Texas. And you also drew like a little soft shoe routine that she danced on those leaves too, but I think just time-wise it had to get cut out.
No visuals from either of these scenes can be found today, unfortunately. Krusty Krab training video. Remember the I Was a Teenage Gary deleted scene that didn't end up doing us a favor by existing? Season 3's Krusty Krab training video, my personal favorite episode of the show, had a similar situation. While the episode aired in May 2002 and has remained the same in every airing since, people online started claiming that the original airing had the Krabby Patty secret formula being revealed at the end of the episode, but was cut off after that. This circulated for 16 years until 2018, when it was debunked in a similar fashion to Teenage Gary. YouTube user CDCB2 uploaded the original airing of the episode, and it ended in the same way every other airing did.
Are you sure? Okay, the secret formula is...
I'm Patsy the Pirate!
By the way, the secret formula is just a marketing play by Mr. Krabs, right up there with McDonald's Monopoly and the songs in Burger King commercials. Suds. Behold! Another example of only single shots being shelved. This time being singular cells of Dr. Patrick carrying a briefcase and a close-up of one of the plugs Patrick uses in his pursuit of medical malpractice. The latter of those found its way to the public through the ill-fated SpongeBob SquarePants trading card game in a prompt card titled Plugged Up. Grandma's Kisses. Another example featuring an episode animatic, but when it comes to Grandma's Kisses, an episode where SpongeBob and Patrick become Sigma males, there isn't really much to point out. The sideburns SpongeBob and Patrick don before heading to Grandma's house originally being mustaches, and a shot of the two eating cookies at the end are the only real differences. Honestly, an underrated episode that I totally recommend. Christmas Who. Apparently this is the part of the video with all the episode animatics. Christmas Who's contain deleted scenes where Santa gave the first girl a topiary shaped like him instead of a wrench. SpongeBob saying, "I told ya he was real," after Santa gave the first girl her present, and Mr. Krabs originally said, "And don't forget about me, Pony," while waiting for Santa. The exact reasons why these scenes were shelved aren't exactly clear. Wet Painters. What's this? Another deleted bit in an animatic? I must be dreaming! But don't get your hopes up, because this time it's only a single piece of dialogue reminiscent of the lawyer rehearsal scene from Ace Ventura. The animatic to Wet Painters includes a line said by SpongeBob,
Heave ho! I dedicate this crash to my old pal Squidward! Bye!
Its absence from the finished episode indicates that it was cut because it implied Squidward is dead. Truth or Square. Aside from the episode going under a different title in some countries, the more infamous change comes when SpongeBob is reciting the time that he and Sandy quote-unquote got married, and the whole thing was revealed to be a play. He was originally going to respond to the priest wondering if the wedding was a play with, "It doesn't have to be," only for Sandy to slap him. According to writer Vincent Waller, the line and gesture was present in the episode's storyboard, but that is yet to be found. This cut was probably for the better, considering we'd rather not feed the kids with more fan service than they already get. Squilliam returns. The class warfare that goes on between Squidward Tentacles and Squilliam Fancy Son is a common occurrence throughout the show, and especially in the episode Squilliam Returns. But there could have been even more visual examples of it that never came to be. According to an interview with writer Sam Henderson, there was a scene that showcased how upper-class Squilliam was to Squidward when they were kids, with baby Squilliam walking while baby Squidward is just learning to crawl. Another features Squidward giving his high school date a single flower while Squilliam appears with a whole bouquet and a huge box of chocolates. No visuals from the scene are available, which is a shame because it really could have said something about how we live in a society or some Joker-esque shit like that. To Love a Patty. Regarded as a simply unpopular or bad episode of the show, To Love a Patty is an episode where SpongeBob gets freaky with a Krabby Patty. You just have to see it to believe it. But it could have gotten potentially even more uncomfortable to the viewers at home if not for some changes made. During the song I Can't Keep My Eyes Off You, Patty was originally shown being partially eaten and smelly before falling into the water. After the song, it was going to transition to a scene of SpongeBob in his underwear and in bed with Patty, but this was toned down into a more family-friendly outdoor picnic. Finally, when SpongeBob takes Patty to the Krusty Krab for a date, he was originally wearing both the wig and suit from the chaperone, but the wig was completely removed and the suit colors changed in the final version of the episode. Storyboards of the original do exist, however. This is truly one of the episodes ever created. SpongeBob Invader Pants / Krabs' Army. The idea of a lost episode of SpongeBob existing has been a major subject of discussion ever since the show's initial burst of popularity. Even the showrunners have referenced the notion by marketing the Sponge Who Could Fly as a quote-unquote lost episode that Patchy the Pirate has to find, only for it to be a bunch of cheap walk cycles. But there are actual lost episodes out there, case in point, SpongeBob Invader Pants and Krabs' Army. Not much was initially known about them outside of being 2 episodes pitched for Season 9 sometime in 2014. This coincided when writing for Sponge Out of Water began and thus the episodes were shelved and never completed. In 2015, former writer / current supervising director Vincent Waller said the episodes would never air, explaining that the crew felt as though the plots weren't good enough for TV. He also later confirmed that the episodes never made it past the storyboard phase and voice acting hadn't begun. As far as the plots go, we don't know exactly what Krabs' Army was about, possibly a sort of spiritual successor to Plankton's Army. But according to Casey Alexander, SpongeBob Invader Pants was centered around aliens showing up at the Krusty Krab for lunch, but Mr. Krabs wouldn't accept their form of payment. This results in the aliens taking the Krusty Krab into outer space and trying to force SpongeBob to make a Krabby Patty. Storyboards for SpongeBob Invader Pants and designs for the aliens have been archived, yet it's hard to make out what is happening in them due to the potato camera quality. After all, we know that 1080p wasn't invented until I started making videos. Scaredy Pants. I've always thought it was interesting how SpongeBob made a Halloween episode before they made a Christmas one. The first deleted scene in the spookiest episode of the show comes when the Flying Dutchman removes SpongeBob's costume and we get a rather chilling image of SpongeBob with his brain bared. It's thought that this was removed for comedic timing, or simply because it's hella terrifying. Although the aired episode did end up showing what SpongeBob looked like after the Dutchman left the scene, so you still get scared either way. Also, as of October 2020, the episode has been edited to cut SpongeBob's line at the end
Don't worry, it grows back.
during Nickelodeon US airings for unknown reasons. Possibly because the kids at home don't learn about asexual reproduction until at least 5th grade. However, this is still present on streaming services, home media releases, and on Nicktoons USA airings. Ghost Host. Staying on the Dutchman-centric episode train, here's Ghost Host. Now, for whatever reason, behind the scenes, this seemingly unnotable episode went through a butcher. It has a boatload of deleted scenes, but I'll only cover a few here, though I do recommend reading up on all of them if you have no life like I do. Before the party scene, we see the Flying Dutchman sleeping in a pile of trash while SpongeBob is trying to get his attention, so the Dutchman asks for breakfast. SpongeBob brings out a piece of steamed coral, which the Dutchman ends up throwing away out of pure disgust. At this point, the Dutchman is having trouble with feeling like he just doesn't have what it takes to scare anyone anymore, so SpongeBob tries to encourage him before he leaves for work. Another deleted scene involves the Dutchman showing Squidward a scary finger trick, while Squidward tries to convince himself ghosts aren't real, but ends up running away in fear. The Dutchman also has a scene of him showing the finger trick to SpongeBob while turning into monsters. But my personal favorite comes when the customer in the mattress store wakes up from his slumber on one of the beds, only to say, "Oh, it's you gave me quite a start," to the manager. I know I said this episode was unnotable earlier, but just look at all the stuff they left out of it. Clams. Many people forget that SpongeBob had a Jaws spoof, but here's Season 3's Clams to get you in the know. According to the storyboard version of the episode on the Sponge Guard on Duty DVD, Mr. Krabs called his parents Eugene Sr. and Betsy Krabs after earning his $1 millionth dollar. It then cuts to a shot of their graves.
Mom, Dad, I finally done it. I made me millionth dollar. That's great, son.
I'm assuming they cut this one because Krabs' parents are shown to be alive and well in other episodes. Also, I would like to point out that a production image showing a shot of their graves exists, and what I find interesting is that it doesn't have their names or any other info on them, but instead just Mom and Dad. Very peculiar. Artist Unknown Original Bold and Brash. Ah yes, Bold and Brash, the global icon and pinnacle of Squidward's art catalog, only for it to end up on a 54-cent Temu shirt. But apparently the original version of Bold and Brash belongs in the trash. Squidward's first attempt was going to look more like this fish thing as seen in a sketch released by supervising director Adam Paloin. While I do prefer the final design, at least this one did make it into another episode though, the Big Bad Bubble Bass. Money Talks. This is an episode from Season 5 where Mr. Krabs acquires the ability to talk to money. In the actual episode, Mr. Krabs wakes up to find a nickel in his belly button. And yet we go to the audio commentary, where it is explained that the original version had Mr. Krabs find it in a place where the sun doesn't shine. Look, I'm talking about his ass, okay? Plankton. This is one of those episodes that you would think people would talk about more due to its importance in defining one of the main characters of the show. But maybe if the scene I want to talk about were to appear, then this wouldn't be the case. According to the audio commentary, Squidward was originally going to appear naked in a scene.
Have reign over your own actions?
This was a partial nude scene they cut out.
You had to sign one of those waivers too.
Yeah. We weren't on the set.
It was
we
very
weren't allowed
awkward.
on the set that day, were we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wasn't
not
allowed.
allowed.
It was cut for potentially obvious reasons. Krabby Patty Creature feature. Contrary to popular belief, there are other episodes of SpongeBob past Season 5, case in point, Season 11's Krabby Patty Creature feature. In the release storyboards, we can find some changes, such as the secret patties being purple instead of orange. But the secret patties were going to be blue, then changed to purple in the animatic, then finally settling on orange. I know, it's confusing. In a scene where SpongeBob screams and exposes his heart, there is no blood that appears in the actual episode, but it does appear on the aforementioned storyboard. You can find this all on one 10-minute video featuring the roughest of rough storyboards. Cuddle E Hugs. In this other Season 11 episode that I actually remember first airing, the Krusty Krab was initially shown as being closed, and live-action sea bunnies sort of just hung out near the aged patty. These deleted bits can also be found on a rough storyboard of the episode. May Neptune shine brightly on the giant hamster. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie Above Land deleted scene. I mentioned this one a bit earlier, but here's a full description. In the first SpongeBob SquarePants movie, there's an absolutely horrid deleted scene featuring SpongeBob and Patrick on dry land meeting Sandy Cheeks, yet they are mortified by her terrestrial appearance, causing Patrick to puke. Later on, Sandy is followed by a group of black-suited exterminators while telling the duo that there are buses from Shell City back to Bikini Bottom. After these sequences, the pair would have to walk past the human versions of themselves and Squidward. It's a strange sequence that probably was better off getting absolutely decimated after the rough storyboarding process. Roller Cowards. Season 5's most fiery, explosive, and deadly episode had some interesting deleted bits. And when I mean interesting, I mean newer TV airings and Amazon Prime versions of the episode has the song Mavericks being replaced by Monster Wave. Oh, you want actually interesting deleted content? Well, what if I told you that there may have been a scene where SpongeBob and Patrick bought online tickets for the park according to the episode's audio commentary?
So did they buy their tickets before they got on the bus?
Apparently. I guess they printed them out over the internet.
Yeah, the interweb.
That's right, we cut out the entire, the exciting printing the tickets off of the internet sequence.
Well, it was running a little long.
It may have been a joke, or it may have been real, but that should satisfy this entry thoroughly. Warblower's full version. Longtime fans of the channel will know of a video I made a while back about Reef Blower, the famed second episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. One of the details I kind of regret leaving out of that video was the background track that played over the episode. Warblowers is a piece of production music made by the Blue Hawaiians for the show, and it has been featured in many episodes, Reef Blower of course being the most notable one. But for the longest time we only had a short snippet of the song, as only the beginning half would be featured. It also never appeared on any soundtrack releases. Lucky for us Reef Blower fiends, the full song was discovered by the YouTube channel SpongeDive's Music in 2016, who reportedly found it on the SpongeBob SquarePants Super Sponge development discs. Don't look up what was on those at work, by the way. Different episode titles. Throughout the show's run, episodes have been renamed either due to the creators not liking it or it being seen as inappropriate. There are many examples of this happening, so I'll only name a few. Season 1's Jellyfish Jam was originally known as Jellyfish Jamboree. Also from Season 1, I Was a Teenage Gary was initially titled Critical Condition. Yeah, that name change was definitely warranted. Lastly, according to the audio commentary for Survival of the Idiots, it was originally going to be called Survival of the Morons. There's plenty more of these, and that's not to mention the loads of different titles that exist in different regions of the world. Someone's in the kitchen with Sandy. If you liked to love a patty, then you'll absolutely love Someone's in the Kitchen with Sandy. It is truly an episode of SpongeBob's 7th season that centers on Plankton disguising himself as Sandy in order to try and nab the Krabby Patty formula. According to storyboards, Sandy was originally going to appear fully naked, but with a disturbing appearance. Other than Sandy's design changes, other changes can be seen between the storyboards and the final episode, like the real Sandy covering herself with a traffic cone and causing several boating fatalities, or Sandy finding a clothing store and getting asked to leave because of the no clothes, no service rule. And breaking news, a Sasquatch has been found in Bikini Bottom, but in reality it's just a naked Sandy hiding in an alley. Credits changes. For whatever reason, SpongeBob can't decide who exactly works on any given episode. This results in the credits getting changed aplenty, whether someone was intended to have a role that got cut out or a simple mistake was made. One example is in the episode Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 3, where Man Ray was supposed to be voiced by Gary Siner, but ended up being replaced by John Rhys Davies. But Gary was credited for the role, leaving it open to speculation as to why it wasn't changed before the episode aired in September 2001. Truly the most tragic event that unfolded at that time. The SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run original premise. The SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run is the third in what many would consider to be the worst film in the SpongeBob SquarePants franchise. The movie's plot focused on Gary being snail-napped by King Poseidon and taken to the lost Atlantic City, with SpongeBob and Patrick teaming up in order to rescue him. But the movie's mediocre reviews may have been a result of its rough development, as that plot description was certainly not the first plan for the film. The movie was initially pitched as a hybrid of live action and animation, and Gary would have been kidnapped by King Neptune and taken to Atlantis to be cloned. Paramount Pictures didn't like this pitch though, as they thought that the movie wouldn't sell well due to the Atlantis setting. I guess people don't like mysterious undersea cities according to them. It was after this point that the movie took a more science fiction / space opera approach, with King Neptune being substituted for these weird space cat creatures. Nicolas Cage would have also bid for the US presidential election. No, I am not joking, that was one of 2 subplots planned for this version. I could go on and on all day about the early versions of this film. It's certainly deserving to go on the video ideas sheet, but they were completely shelved and the movie would go on to commit the terrible crime of being painfully average. Original Pitch Bible stories. Pitch Bibles are documents used by screenwriters for reference, which details information on characters, settings, episodes, and other elements of either a show or a movie. For SpongeBob, a total of 3 pitch bibles were made between 1996 and 1997 to give an outline of the show on paper, with characters, descriptions, and characters with descriptions. The first one was created in 1996 when the main character still went by the name of SpongeBoy. It is 21 pages long and is more of a general description of the various settings and characters. The second one, created in 1997, is far more detailed, even including early episode ideas, including Muscle Beach, the Squeaky Boots, Bubble Stand, and Employee of the Month. Even Reef Blower is here. It is still unknown if we have all the content from the Bibles, but to have not one, but 2 of them fully available is already insane in itself. Mrs. Puff's dad. While we all know what happened to Mr. Puff, Mrs. Puff's dad is a different story. The only reason we know of his existence is in the credits of the episode Doing Time. Tom Kenny is credited to have voiced the character, meaning that there was potentially a deleted scene that they had already recorded dialogue for. Nothing from this has ever resurfaced, unfortunately, and the mystery of Mrs. Puff's father continues to be just that. Who knows, he probably went to go get milk or something. Dunces and Dragons SpongeBob Doppelganger. Dunces and Dragons is not only a great name for an episode, but it's one of the better post-movie specials in my personal opinion. But what you might have not known was that the original plans of the episode had the appearance of SpongeBob and Patrick doppelgangers who would resemble them, but be more muscular and taller.
Excuse us, prophecy coming through.
Well, there goes that gig.
They would have appeared after regular old SpongeBob and Patrick fell out of the sky. The SpongeBob doppelganger is still present in the credits for the episode, being voiced by Roger Bumpus. Unfortunately, he would not make the final cut, but his legacy still lives on through the animatic featured on various DVD releases. Atlantis SquarePants airing in 2 parts. Despite being another popular special episode, Atlantis SquarePants doesn't really have that much deleted content. But what is interesting enough by my stringent standards is that some of the international dubs, such as those that air in Spain, Poland, Greece, and Serbia, cut the episode into 2 parts. There's even a to be continued card that appears at the halfway mark of the episode. The same is true for other dual-length special episodes, such as Truth or Square and SpongeBob's Big Birthday Blowout. Sailormouth Uncensored Dialogue. Aww. It's time to talk about the Sailormouth dialogue. You've certainly heard of this one before, so I'll try to keep it concise. This is an extremely popular episode from the 2nd season of the series where SpongeBob discovers swearing, and the gimmick is that every time it is implied he swore, it is censored by a dolphin noise. Fun fact, did you know that the dolphin noise actually comes from a bird called a kookaburra? My childhood is. But what were the voice actors actually saying behind that noise? During a panel featuring Tom Kenny, he discussed how it was like recording the episode. Originally, the voice cast was asked to ad-lib the words without actually using them, but this proved to be difficult, so then they just said it and swore like a sailor during the recording session so they could censor it later. Needless to say, Lost Media Wizards waved their wands in search of this uncensored version of the dialogue. The real dialogue remained elusive for more than 2 decades, but as of recent, various mysterious leaks and finds have allowed us to listen to some of the infamous audio, with the most recent find being led by my broskies over at the Lost Media Busters a few weeks ago, along with Derps and OptiGear. Yeah. Well, it is debated what parts of audio go where in the timeline of the episode, or if they are even a part of Sailormouth. It's still a bigger find than any of us could have imagined. Copyright issues with background music. The series has been known to have a history of using copyrighted background music in other songs throughout the series. This results in some songs that had to get cut from episodes, either because the license to use it expires after a certain amount of time, or they explicitly are not allowed to use some songs on some releases. A notable example of this is in Help Wanted, where Livin' in the Sunlight, Lovin' in the Moonlight by Tiny Tim, a song used during a significant sequence of the episode, is absent from most DVD releases. According to Derek Dryman, this is because those cheapskates at Nickelodeon did not want to pay more licensing fees to Tiny Tim's estate than they already were. Reef Blower Dialogue. Remember Reef Blower? Yeah, no shit, I've brought it up at least 12,415 times. This entry will probably just be me restating intro from that video I did a while back. But anyways, with Reef Blower's complete absence of spoken dialogue, fans speculated for years about why this was the case. One of the rumors that went around back in the day was that the audio equipment broke while they were recording the episode, and they ended up having to scrap it completely. This rumor likely originated from IMDb and ended up being completely false. No, it wasn't until July 2022 when SpongeBob creative Jay Lender clarified on Twitter that it was simply to get out of paying an extra set of voice actor fees for what was basically a filler episode. Who in the Krusty Krab is penny pinching at Nickelodeon? I just have to know. The Inmates of Summer title card skipping. Since 2013, the title card for the Season 5 episode The Inmates of Summer has been skipped on every Nickelodeon airing. Not on Nicktoons and Nick at Night for whatever reason, just plain old Nickelodeon. Most believe this is simply a remnant of being a remastered print of the episode. It's a SpongeBob Christmas CBS airing. It's a SpongeBob Christmas is the show's second Christmas special, this time done in beautiful stop motion. However, many people might not know that this special originally aired a month earlier in November not on Nick, but on CBS. This is not to be confused with the time that Nickelodeon shows did actually air on CBS. But there were some differences between the two versions, namely that the patchy segments were completely absent from the CBS airing for whatever reason. Also, and this isn't specific to any version, but there was a metric ton of content cut from the episode that was initially present in the storyboards. I'm not even going to mention anything specific, just go to the SpongeBob wiki and glance at its beauty for yourself. Every montage scene originally had twice as many gags. Earlier, I talked about Squilliam Returns and its deleted content, but I deliberately did not mention how we learned of it in the first place. In late 2003 or early 2004, a guy who goes by PC Bob gave an interview to SpongeBob writer Sam Henderson for his fan site. This site then proceeded to close down, and now a transcript is available on the SpongeBob Mania forums. After being asked about scenes that didn't make the cut and mentioning Squilliam Returns, he makes a one-off comment about every montage scene in the show originally having twice as many gags. This opens up a whole other can of worms by implying that many unseen gags were made, but are not available for public consumption. In Spongiac original premise. In Spongiac was a strange episode that aired in the midst of SpongeBob's Dark Age, which is probably why you don't remember it despite its trippy and unique dream sequences. While the aired episode followed the plot of SpongeBob having difficulty sleeping and asking Patrick for help, the description given at Comic-Con 2011 stated that instead we would have followed Mr. Krabs having a nightmare about turning into a mustard dispenser. The episode was originally planned to air in January of 2012, but due to plot changes was pushed back to April of that year. The original plot was even listed on Nickelodeon's website for a while before its premiere. Although, looking at the SpongeBob wiki, it is stated that this description may have been a misinterpretation or miscommunication by the staff or Comic-Con themselves. After all, storyboards released shortly after have SpongeBob in the dream sequence, and the final episode starts with Mr. Krabs getting angry at SpongeBob for using too much mustard. Different quote-unquote character drawings. It's here where we get into the part of the video that's supposed to be really dark and scary, so now I'll proceed to talk about naked SpongeBob characters. It turns out animation is a very boring and tedious process, and thus the SpongeBob crew needs to find various ways to blow off some steam. One way of doing this is by drawing some, let's just say, different versions of characters. We knew about this before, with some creatives stating that they would make inappropriate drawings of the cast and tape them to the back of the door so that when it was opened, they would not be plainly visible. A few of these drawings could be found on the aforementioned development discs for Super Sponge. But it wasn't until the release of documents from the previously unknown behind closed doors storyboard jam in 2023 when things came full circle. This was a booklet featuring all of the horrid, jarring, and frankly disturbing drawings made by the crew over time, gathered together in one package that is guaranteed to shiver your timbers. We won't ever look at Mr. Krabs saying, "and time for the chaser," the same way ever again. I Was a Teenage Gary deleted scene is real. Oh, you thought I was talking about that deleted scene. Oh, no, no, no. There is an actual deleted scene from I Was a Teenage Gary, albeit it is very unnotable. In every US airing of the episode on Nickelodeon and Nicktoons after October 2020, Squidward is shown meowing alongside the other snail-morphed characters as usual. Except, the last meow gets cut off at the end because the cheapskates at Nickelodeon will do anything for more commercial time. So now I guess you can say that the Squidward snail-deleted scene in I Was a Teenage Gary is real and not be lying. I guess that's pretty neat. The SpongeBob crew is faking deleted scenes. This entry is relatively self-explanatory and presents the conspiracy that the SpongeBob crew is faking deleted scenes for clout or something dumb like that. I don't see why this would be the case, and if I made this Iceberg today, this certainly wouldn't be an entry on here. But alas, I was just a stupid kid who stuck crayons up his nose 3 years ago, and so this stain shall remain. Cancelled SpongeBob SquarePants and the Loud House crossover. Being two of Nick's most popular Nicktoons, it has long been theorized if a Loud House and SpongeBob crossover will ever be made, or if there were plans to make it at some point. In fact, I'm going to share a little secret with you, as those are only reserved for this tier of the iceberg. Back in the Bronze Age of 2020, I found a Roku listing for something titled The Loud House and SpongeBob Special. Being a complete imbecile child, I assumed this was some lost crossover no one had ever seen, took a picture of it, and posted it onto r/SpongeBob. I've since deleted that post out of embarrassment, but here's the picture of that listing. Looking back on it now, it's probably just some weird promotional thing that Roku misconstrued as an actual episode, or a strange mistranslation. After all, who in their right mind says SpongeBob's name as just Bob? Here we are several years later and I still have no clue what to make of it. SpongeBob Hemp Pants. Getting out of stuff that doesn't make sense, here we have SpongeBob Hemp Pants. I know some of you in the audience were just smirking with excitement once I said that name. It was a parody of the popular series that was produced for VH1's Illustrated, a sketch comedy show most known for their spoofs of popular 2000s celebrities. I actually covered it in my first 25 random pieces of lost media video a while back. The show chronicles the adventures of SpongeBob, Hashbrick, Spliffword, and Mr. Crack, who are all parodies of pre-established characters modeled after illicit substances. They go on stoner-sized adventures in their city, with SpongeBob and Hashbrick specifically shown to hang out in their small dormitory.
Better. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am.
Then I'll just roll up a big fat... oh no!
What's wrong, SpongeBob?
But what does this have to do with SpongeBob's deleted content? Let's just say Nick did not approve of SpongeBob and its inappropriate zeal, and thus it was cut out of Illustrated and replaced with a different sketch. Luckily, all 3 episodes did make their way online back in 2010, giving people core edgy childhood memories that they look fondly upon a decade later. The Intertidal Zone deleted content. This is an entry not about some 1970s rock band, but instead a comic book created by Steven Hillenburg in 1989, 10 years before his show SpongeBob SquarePants premiered. Its intention was to teach young audiences about marine biology, of which Hillenburg was majoring in during his time at Humboldt State University. Unbeknownst to anyone at the time, one of the comic's main characters, Bob the Sponge, would become the first iteration of the greatest character ever invented. While the Intertidal Zone had been known for many years, this entry is mostly referring to the fact that only brief snippets of the full book have been shown in spite of its historical significance. This was until just recently in April 2024, when artist Chris McCord had gotten a copy of the book for his birthday, and released the full thing onto the Internet Archive. As for actual cut content, it is simply not known if the Intertidal Zone contains any. Destroyed SpongeBob episodes. Again, an entry I probably wouldn't have included if this iceberg were to be made today. There really aren't any destroyed SpongeBob episodes, but there are 2 episodes that were deliberately removed from the show's rotation by Nick. Season 3's Midlife Crustacean was infamously removed from broadcast in early 2021 due to the whole panty raid scene where Mr. Krabs steals his mother's underwear. How inappropriate and disgusting. Truly, this episode deserves to be buried away in a vault never to be seen again. If you want an episode that was pulled due to poor timing, look no further than Quarantine Crab. If you couldn't already tell by the title, this one was pulled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, being set to premiere in 2020 with a plot about how the Krusty Krab was being quarantined due to the clam flu. Yeah, I think that one was a little too on the nose. It didn't end up premiering in the US until 2022. Lost Media Central. This refers to a certain YouTube channel that was only really active for about 2 months back in 2021. The only way I can really describe them is that they're this ARG/analog horror type channel who uploaded quote-unquote early SpongeBob content. You know, stuff from SpongeBob Ahoy, early storyboards, cancelled episodes, etc. Of course, all of this stuff was fake and created more to spook the audience during their late night YouTube binge. But to add a mysterious angle to it, no one really knows who created the channel, and you really don't hear much about it today. I guess I'm just here to spread the message, you really just had to be there to see it. Kolobi Productions thumbnails are actual deleted scenes. Oh boy, you are not ready for this one. So, Kolobi Productions might be one of the weirdest channels on YouTube that actually makes somewhat coherent content. They were quite popular several years back, for all the wrong reasons mind you, but now pretty much all of their videos get dislike bombed with all of their inaccuracies and wild clickbait straight out of 2016. But their infamy coincides with that of the famous Yellow Sponge. He's made several videos on SpongeBob's deleted scenes and animation errors, usually with some wild thumbnails to go along with it. Like this one right here where SpongeBob is holding a Bang Bang device. Or this one where Plankton has 2 eyes. Or this one where Squidward's house is badly photoshopped out of the image. Needless to say, none of these are actually real, but I recommend you go explore the channel for yourself. It's simply insane shit. Oh yeah, Mr. Krabs deleted content. So, remember Oh yeah, Mr. Krabs?
Oh yeah, Mr. Krabs!
That iconic little video may have unlocked some deep dark childhood memories. While there's not any deleted content that we know of, there is actually an interesting conundrum with the original video. If you were to look up Oh Yeah Mr. Krabs on YouTube right now, the video that comes up is one from 7 years ago that stands at 1 million views. Many would assume by the title that this is the original, but the meme has actually existed for far longer. The original video, in fact, is titled Multimedia Message Mr. Krabs.3GP, which currently stands at a measly 164,000 views and was uploaded all the way back on May 4th, 2007. It's likely that this video wasn't created as a meme, but instead to test a dead file format used on mobile phones of the era, and that's what makes these 5 seconds so beautiful to me. And that right there is the SpongeBob SquarePants deleted scenes Iceberg explained. It's crazy to think that I technically started production on this video more than 3 years ago at this point. This was one of the first videos I ended up trying to make for the channel, and being a kid who barely knew anything about YouTube, it was hard to tackle all on its own. But time and time again I kept coming back to it, sometimes failing, but still chipping away at parts of the iceberg, until finally getting it done. I guess it's just another feather in the old cap at this point. I know it's not very clear, but a lot of people did actually help me in writing parts of this video, since this was initially planned to be a collab. So special thanks to ComedyFan74, Kai, UltraChrist, and Seeker of the Lost for the assistance. I'm truly grateful, but also I'm very tired. That's about all I have to say. This has been Bray Bray, thanks for watching, like, subscribe, and remember that Buff Yoshi is forever supreme.